All right, welcome to another episode of the Growth Insider. Today we have Kat from Motive. And Kat, do you want to just give a little bit of a background of where you're from and a little bit about the business?
Sure, yeah. Kat Jones, founder of Motive, which was formerly Motive PR. But earlier this year, we rebranded and kind of came out with our full suite of services, which I like to kind of define as under a comms umbrella, communications partner umbrella. And that's, social media, PR, events, influencer, talent booking, just a slew of it. But my background, I've been in marketing, PR, communications, promotions since roughly 2005, so almost 20 years. I was in radio and TV in my early days, local radio and TV, and then my first job out of college was at Marvel. So I was at Marvel for a few years, starting in the promotions, retail development side, and then landing over in the animated side where I was working on marketing and communications before jumping to Machinima, which at the time was one of the first multi-channel networks. It was early days of digital media, content creators. The concept of a YouTuber was still like foreign to so many people. And I started in more of an entertainment PR position and grew to oversee all PR for the company, and then went over to this place called Azubu, which was a live streaming platform that was focused on esports, and was there for a couple of years, working mostly on international PR, so very regional based, developing PR strategies for, Brazil or the UK. And then I went over to this place called Defy Media, which was an umbrella company that owned a bunch of digital brands like Smosh, Clever, Screen Junkies, The Warp Zone, and ended up, over a couple of years growing into a PR role that oversaw all PR for the company. And then it was around early 2018 that I started to get the itch and was seeing things, seeing companies, seeing brands, seeing people, and my brain would just start to kind of formulate PR plans for them in real time. And that was the moment that I was like, I know what I'm doing and I can do this for multiple people. And so I launched Motive PR in early 2019, and the rest is history. We've been working with a slew of clients under the, digital media, content creator, geek nerd fandom, gaming, emerging technology space. But the most defined way I can say that is like anybody who's pushing the bounds of how people are consuming entertainment is really the area that I like to, that's the sweet spot.
Very cool. Before we dive into the business, I'm curious, working at those larger companies like Marvel or just overseeing massive PR strategies, what did you take away from those large companies of what you can kind of carry with you? And then what were some things that were like, oh, the way big companies do PR is a total mess. I needed to do this myself.
Well, so it's a couple things. I think that there was also it's a sign of the times, right? I was at those companies when PR was drastically different than it is today. Very traditional, we send out a press release that you could almost copy paste a strategy for every single launch. And so as time has progressed, as social media has, almost become its own avenue of communications, as reporters and journalists have gone on to become their own influencers, right? Unfortunately, there's a revolving door within the media landscape where reporters are losing their jobs, but then they're also, picking up and finding an audience on their own. There's just so many things that are happening that you cannot look at previous strategies even 3 or 4 years ago and use them today. So that's a drastic change. It's just in general, the timeline has shifted the way that people approach PR. But in terms of how the big company approach to PR is different than how I do it now, you're dealing with a lot of stakeholders who either have a different goal or a different point of view, or for lack of a better term, sometimes think they know that area more than they do. So you're juggling a lot of different personalities, especially when you're reporting into people or you're, working with partners. So that ends up playing a huge part in what you're able to do and what you're able to execute, and then also the end result. So sometimes it would end up being beneficial. I am always in the mindset of like, surround yourself with people who challenge you and make you a better person, make you think outside the box, think beyond the way that you think. So it would be beneficial in that capacity sometimes, where someone would come to the table with a different idea and I would be like, oh, wait a minute, like I didn't even think about that. Let's dig into that a little bit more. But then it would be detrimental when someone would come to the table and be, hell-bent on going in this direction, and you're like, we should probably not do that. Or you're having 7 different people with 7 different opinions and you're trying to appease to everybody, because that was common too with big companies. So that would end up being, either beneficial or most of the time not. And where we are now, luckily, running our own ship and being able to kind of pick and choose the clients that we get to work with, we're in a position where people come to us going, hey, this is our goal. And most of the time it's a singular goal, right? Because we're either working with an individual or working with the head of a company or the head of a brand. So they have a very fine-tuned idea of what their goal is. And they come to us and say, what do we do? And so we're able to, based on our experience and the tools that we have, we're able to present to them ideas on what we can do. And they trust us to, pursue those, execute on them, and ideally get results. So we have more flexibility because people are coming to us to accomplish something for them because they've seen what we've been able to do, or they, hear that we're able to accomplish certain things. So those are the two like big, different definitions that I've experienced working in big companies versus running our own ship.
Okay, nice. A lot of people listening, obviously the Growth Insider, we're focused on, scaling companies and growing them, but just being involved with a lot of brands and, technology and startup companies, larger companies, mid-market, I've noticed that like almost nobody, even some of the most advanced marketing teams, have any idea how to do like PR and actual proper media placement strategy. So if you were giving advice to someone who's kind of like knows the importance of gaining awareness, but just doesn't have any grip or grasp on what's possible, what would you advise to them? Let's say like a mid-market company that's just trying to kind of get their foot in the door with some of this PR stuff.
Sure. It really boils down to what do you have that would be of interest to the media? Because I think sometimes, understandably, people are working on things that they're so close to that they look at it and go, of course someone would be interested in this, because they are so close to it and they're so passionate about it, without thinking about the bigger picture of like the people you're dealing with get hundreds, if not thousands of pitches a day, hundreds, if not thousands of press releases a day. Most of the time, press releases or pitches that have nothing to do with their beat, because they're dealing with people that don't even kind of dig into who these reporters are, who these journalists are, what they truly care about. So they're having to funnel through all of this. And so you have to make sure that you strategically deliver to them something that based on your research, based on your relationships, based on whatever they might cover previously, that you're presenting to them not only something that would be of interest, but ideally something that is exclusive to them, or something that nobody else has. And you have to be honest and truthful with yourself. So there have been times where people have come to us, potential clients, and they're like, we're launching this thing, or we're doing this thing, or we're a company that just wants PR. What do you think? And I have to look at the details. I tell them, send me the kitchen sink, tell me everything. And once I dig into those details, and I have to look at it and go, is there a there? And especially nowadays, with how it's a very competitive landscape out there. There's, limited earned media placement real estate, and a lot of people pitching, or a lot of people trying to secure opportunities. A story that might have been placed a year or two ago, even nowadays, might not be placed for a multitude of reasons, right? Maybe they're limited with resources. Maybe they have a new directive. to, only cover X, Y, or Z, or maybe they're trying to cover real estate on their website with paid placements because they need to be making money, right? There's a multitude of reasons. So sometimes we've had to be like, unfortunately, we don't think there is a story here yet. But if you were to get X, Y, or Z, right? Like, let's say there's a partnership, or you're going to be adding this or that, or we're able to kind of express to them what the needs would be in order for this to be a tangible story for someone from the media to be interested in. So those are really things that we look at. I never, we sometimes get people who are like, hey, how much would it be to just put out a press release? And I'm like, we don't do that, because that's the easiest way not to get coverage. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to take on a client or do a project that I don't think actually delivers for somebody. And just putting out a press release won't get you coverage. You have to really think through what the story is, what the angle is. Maybe putting out a press release after the fact to be like icing on the cake, just for visibility, for awareness, so that media might see it and be like, oh, I've never heard of that company. That's cool. They're doing something interesting. I'll be paying attention to them later. Not necessarily for coverage. So you really have to dig into the details, the facts, and see if there's a there, and if media will truly be interested in what you're sharing. And if not yet, then keep working at it. Keep kind of developing and so for example, we just worked with a client who came to me about a year and a half ago, and they told me what they were working on. And at the time I was like, I don't think that we have something yet, but if you do this or that, or if something like this comes up, come back to me and we can revisit it. They came back to us a couple months ago. They had something juicy, and we just launched a campaign for them, and it has taken off. So it's really kind of thinking through those different areas.
Nice. If you can't share specific names and stuff, that's totally fine. But I'm curious, like for businesses that are thinking of the possibility of this sort of marketing, what's like a story or two that you've worked on, or just a campaign or two that you've worked on that has absolutely crushed it for a client? What did it kind of look like? Like, what were the ingredients that went into making such a successful campaign?
What's interesting is one that just comes to mind only because it was major, but simultaneously it required immediate shifting. Is one time we worked on a Kickstarter campaign that in the lead up, we were trying to secure media around it. Media just was like, I don't know, we're not really interested in covering this Kickstarter. It was hard for them to wrap their head around why they should care about this. And then the Kickstarter campaign launched, and within minutes, it was gaining massive traction, to the point where very quickly we saw the change in the narrative. We were like, oh, this is not about XYZ launches a Kickstarter. This is about, holy moly, look, what is happening here? Look at the success. What does this mean? Who is this community that's backing it, right? So we immediately shifted the pitch to be focused around the success of this and what this means, what the long-term effects of something like this could be for this company. And we pitched that and gained a lot of traction with some really top-tier outlets, because they saw what was happening. We kind of provided the data, provided the insight, and they immediately shifted to covering it, and covering it through that lens. So that was really cool, because it was one of those moments where we all just kind of saw what was happening and immediately shifted the narrative to fit what we knew media would be more interested in versus just the launch of a Kickstarter.
So it's the adaptability kind of on the fly with campaigns that's the most important.
Absolutely. That doesn't happen all the time, but you just have to, especially again, in a day and age where under the communications PR umbrella is social media, it is constant engagement and conversation around things that are changing on a regular basis. So you have to be tapped into that and tapped into that conversation to sometimes influence any changes in your campaign in real time.
And if we're kind of shifting back to like your agency in and of itself as well, you mentioned before we hit record that you're kind of very referral based in the business, which I think a lot of founders and CEOs think that they're referral based, but what they mean is like some they don't get any leads and work will kind of come their way like every few months. So for someone who's very high level with just doing super good work and letting clients come to you through referrals, how do you how do you kind of build an ecosystem like that? Because it's not just doing good work, it's making sure that other people have visibility on that work and visibility on the case studies, and just the campaigns that are live. So if anyone's listening that kind of wants to build like more of that referral network effect in their business, what are some tips that they can use to do something like that?
So luckily, when I launched Motive, as I kind of mentioned, it was really curated and ideated through the lens of like my previous experience. So a lot of our origin clients and like a lot of the clients that have come from the referral of those clients are within my network, or like, concentric circle network of people I've already worked with or known or have relationships with or know through somebody else. So luckily I've kind of been within this space for a long time and have been able to be really thoughtful about the work that I do and the clients that we take on, and just my day-to-day engagement, to the point that I'm very grateful that people have come saying, we've seen your work, or we've been referred to by this person, and it's kind of within that wheelhouse of my network. But also, it was really important to me the moment that I started Motive that we have a social page across every platform, right? We have an Instagram, we have LinkedIn, we have Facebook, and anytime we have a win, I make sure to share it on there with a LinkedIn. I make sure to share it on there. I make sure it's updated on the website. Where it might make sense, I alert folks about it and kind of keep people updated, but not from a bombarding type of point of view. More so like, hey, this would be of interest to you. Like, I just want to share it with you. So those are kind of the two buckets that have been invaluable to us since I launched Motive. And yeah, I do think at the crux of it, the base of everything I'm sharing truly leans on the fact that we do not take on projects that we don't think we can deliver for, and deliver not necessarily has to be high quality, oh my God, wow, every time, but at least every time we bring on a new client, I'm extremely transparent about what's possible. I will never promise the moon if I can't deliver it. Sometimes I have to kind of bring them back down to reality and be like, we can deliver for you, but this is probably what it's going to look like, not this, which is what you think. But if we kind of build the steps, build the building blocks and keep building towards that, there's a potential for that down the line, So I always am extremely transparent with everyone we work with, and I think, and that, helps them understand what's possible. And then when we actually deliver, we're all on the same page. And so I think that also helps in terms of long-term reputation with what we do, and how we are referred to and bring on clients, where it's not just the results, it's how we work with them on a day-to-day basis, and always being upfront and transparent and ensuring that everybody's on the same page at every step of the way.
Cool. Yeah, that totally makes sense. It's like all of those simple things of, number one, caring about the work that you do, number two, not just taking on anyone, and then
Yep.
the thing that people always forget is just you're already doing amazing work and people love it. So just share it as a useful insight to like prospective clients and partners that you could run into in the future. And if you do it that way, it comes across not as like needy and like you're trying to get leads. It comes across as just like you're trying to be helpful to those prospective clients and partners in the future.
Yeah, and it's almost like a hub for case studies.
Yeah.
I even when I do things, it's a little weird for me to share that, but I've had to push past that, my own block of like, nobody wants to see you doing this or you sharing this, and be like, this could be insightful, and this is then kind of centralized into a case study hub, right? So like I look at Instagram, Motive's Instagram is just a case study, bucket for people to go to and see the type of work we do, or see the type of person they'll be working with, like if I do things. So I have to kind of like get past that, not wanting to have people see the things I do so that they can actually see who they would work with and really understand the way that we tick.
I know you're cautious about growing in the right way, like we talked about, but what is the goal for the company in the next year or so? Like, where are you trying to get to?
So I'm happy to, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but that we have been Motive PR previously, and as of a couple months ago, we are no longer Motive PR, we're just Motive, because I wanted the outside to reflect what has been going on the inside, which is we've been taking on more projects that have to do with social media management or talent booking or influencer relations, things like that. So we have now expanded our services, and that's something that we've made public. And in terms of what the next year looks like you mentioned, I am very thoughtful about how we hire and making sure not only we're bringing the right people on, but that we're not bringing people on only to then maybe put them in a position where we have to let them go. Because we are, for lack of a better term, we are very much almost like a fractional agency, where if people come to us, I'm not strict or put my foot down about, it's either retainer based or 6-month minimum retainer or anything like that. It's like, you come to us, you have a project that is just like, you only need us to focus on the project, and it's only going to be a couple months. And if we're on the same page and the budget's right and we're all, aligned, we'll do it, right? So because of our flexibility, because we also kind of have to be, let's be blunt, this is the day and age we live in. Because of our flexibility, I can't always guarantee being able to hire full-time people on a regular basis, because I want to make sure that we're taking care of folks, and I don't want to put them in a position where who knows where it'll be in 3, 4, 5 months, although I'm trying to plan that far in advance. So I'd say a year from now, we're steady climbing. We're actually currently hiring a communications coordinator role that will be part-time to potentially full-time. And it's just a steady build, because I also want to make sure that the current team that we do have is deeply involved in everything, because the stuff we get to do is pretty cool. Like, it's really cool projects and they really enjoy it. And so I don't want to put anybody in a position where we're hiring new people and then taking those projects away from them, and they're, so we're in a good place right now. And I just want to be thoughtful about what that growth looks like, and not just grow for the sake of growing.
Sure. Last question I have is for people that are interested in working with you or just checking out some of the work that you've done. Where can they find you? Where's the best place to connect?
Yeah, so our website, motivepr.com, even though we rebranded, we still have the OG website, motivepr.com. They can find us on Instagram at motivepr, LinkedIn, motivepr, and that's MOTIV without an E, so MOTIVPR. And then, I think those are probably the best places. We do have a Facebook, but it's pretty much Instagram, LinkedIn, website. They can find us there.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think a lot of people, you'd be surprised, like I mentioned, don't know nearly enough about the stuff that you guys are doing at the agency. So hopefully this will spark some ideas for listeners to leverage PR, leverage media, go find an agency partnership, probably with yourself, to drive some results for their business. So thanks again.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love talking about this stuff. I geek out over it.
Sweet. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.